There is a man sitting across a table from a killer, not chasing him, not arresting him, sitting across from him, listening. And the unsettling part isn't that the killer is talking. It's how calmly he's talking. Like he's been waiting years for someone to ask the right questions. Buckle up. I'm not going to make you wait 3 minutes to find out what the show is, because if you're anything like me, you'd already be scrolling to the comments. The show is called Through the Darkness, a 12-episode Korean crime drama from 2022. And somehow, despite being one of the best thrillers I've seen in years, almost nobody talks about it. What makes this series different isn't the murders. It isn't the investigations. It isn't even the killers. It's the people trying to understand them. Because Through the Darkness asks a question most crime dramas never dare to ask. What does it cost to understand a monster? Not to catch one, to understand one. What happens to the people whose job requires them to step into the darkest corners of the human mind and stay there long enough to bring something useful back? That question sits at the center of every episode, and once the show gets its hooks into you, it's very hard to look away. There's a scene later in the series where a profiler sits across from a convicted serial killer and asks him a single question. The killer smiles. Not because it's funny, because somebody finally asked the question he wanted to answer. That smile tells you everything you need to know about this show. It understands that the most terrifying moments aren't loud. They're quiet. They're the moments where two people sit across a table from each other and one of them realizes exactly who they're dealing with. Still with me? Good, because this is where my sister enters the story. One Tuesday night, around 11 o'clock, she called me and told me to watch this show. Now, my sister is incredibly picky with television. If a show wastes her time, she's gone. So I asked her what it was about. She said, just start episode 1. That was the entire recommendation. Nothing else. I trusted her. I started episode 1 around midnight. A few hours later, I was still watching. And when I finally stopped, my first thought was, how did I not hear about this sooner? Now I'm doing the same thing to you. I'm not going to walk you through every case. I'm not going to spoil the major reveals. What I am going to do is explain why this show deserves a place on your watch list, because it absolutely does. The year is 1998. Seoul is dealing with a kind of criminal the system doesn't fully understand. There is no established profiling unit, no proven framework, no roadmap. Most detectives are trying to solve crimes using methods they've trusted their entire careers. Then someone suggests something radical. What if understanding the killer is part of catching the killer? What if interviewing them is just as important as hunting them? What if the only way forward is to learn how they think? That idea becomes the foundation of everything that follows. And at the center of it is Song Ha-young, played brilliantly by Kim Nam-gil. Song Ha-young isn't a typical television hero. He's quiet, observant, measured. He spends more time listening than speaking, and that's exactly why the character works. Because his greatest strength is empathy, not sympathy. Empathy. The ability to understand what another person is thinking without becoming that person himself. And Kim Nam-gil plays that balancing act beautifully. There's an interrogation scene later in the series that perfectly captures who Ha-young is. His voice never shakes. His expression barely changes. But if you pay attention, his hands are trembling. That single detail tells you everything. This is a man carrying the weight of every conversation he has with evil. And he keeps showing up anyway. Here's the part that completely changed how I watched this series. Through the Darkness isn't simply inspired by crime stories. It's based on the experiences of Kwon Il-young, widely recognized as South Korea's first criminal profiler. The character of Song Ha-young is heavily inspired by that work. And once you know that, every interview, every interrogation, every uncomfortable silence hits differently. Because these aren't fictional superheroes solving impossible crimes. These are people trying to build something that didn't really exist before. They're attempting to convince an entire system that understanding criminal psychology matters, and not everyone agrees. In fact, one of the most fascinating conflicts in the series isn't between the profilers and the killers. It's between the profilers and their own colleagues. The idea of sitting down and talking to murderers sounds absurd to a lot of people around them. A waste of time, a distraction, something that feels soft compared to traditional police work. The show spends a surprising amount of time exploring that resistance. And honestly, it's better for it, because progress rarely arrives with applause. Most of the time it arrives with skepticism, and Through the Darkness understands that. What impressed me most is the restraint. A lesser show would turn every criminal into some larger-than-life mastermind. Through the Darkness doesn't. The killers are disturbing because they're human, not because they're movie villains. The show never glamorizes them, never celebrates them, never asks you to admire them. Instead, it asks you to understand why they became who they became. And that's far more unsettling. Now, I want to be fair, because if I recommend something to you, I want to tell you exactly what you're getting. This is not a fast-moving thriller. If you're looking for constant twists, cliffhangers every 10 minutes, and explosions disguised as plot development, this isn't that show. Through the Darkness moves deliberately, patiently. It takes its time. And for some viewers, especially in the first few episodes, that might be an adjustment. But here's the thing, the pacing isn't slow because the writers don't know what they're doing. The pacing is slow because observation takes time. Understanding people takes time. Building tension takes time. And the show uses that time well. Every interview matters. Every conversation reveals something. Every silence has a purpose. By the time the major confrontations arrive, they've been earned. And because they've been earned, they hit harder, much harder. One of the biggest strengths of the series is its confidence. It never feels desperate for your attention. It trusts you. It trusts that you're paying attention. It trusts that you don't need dramatic music every 30 seconds to understand the weight of a scene. That confidence is rare. And when a show has it, you feel it immediately. Before I wrap up, we need to talk about Kim Nam-gil, because without him, this show doesn't work. The role demands restraint, a lot of restraint. Most actors can play anger, most actors can play grief, most actors can play fear. Playing stillness is much harder. Making silence interesting is much harder. And Kim Nam-gil does it for 12 episodes. He creates a character who often says very little, but somehow commands every scene he's in. You find yourself watching him think, watching him process, watching him absorb information. And somehow that becomes just as compelling as the investigations themselves. That's not easy. That's an actor operating at an extremely high level. And by the end of the series, you'll understand exactly why so many people consider this one of the best performances of his career. This is the part that still surprises me. Because on paper, Through the Darkness should have been a much bigger international hit. It's intelligent. It's well acted. It's based on fascinating real-world events. It's beautifully directed. And it's only 12 episodes long, yet somehow it slipped under the radar for a lot of viewers outside Korea. Maybe it arrived at the wrong time. Maybe it lacked the kind of viral moment that algorithms love. Maybe it was simply overshadowed by louder shows. Whatever the reason, it deserved more attention than it got. Because this is the kind of series people always claim they want. A mature story, strong performances, thoughtful writing, real tension, no gimmicks, no unnecessary distractions, just excellent storytelling. And unfortunately, excellent storytelling doesn't always trend. So here's my recommendation. Watch this show when you can actually pay attention to it. Not while scrolling through your phone, not while answering messages, not while half watching from across the room. Give it your full attention. because that's what it asks from you. And more importantly, that's what it deserves. When you finish the first episode, you'll probably think it's good. By episode 4, you'll understand why people recommend it so passionately. And by the time you reach the final stretch, you'll realize this was never really a story about serial killers. It's a story about the people willing to confront darkness face to face, the people willing to sit across the table, to listen, to understand, and to carry the cost of that understanding long after everyone else has gone home. That's Through the Darkness. 12 episodes, no spoilers, no exaggeration, just one of the most compelling crime dramas I've watched in years. And if you've already seen it, let me know in the comments. What's the first word that comes to mind when you think about this series? One word, that's all. I'll be reading every answer. Peace!